If your team runs on Google Workspace, Gmail, Drive, Docs, Sheets, Calendar, Forms, you're probably doing a lot of work that could be automated. Moving data from one place to another, sending notifications when something happens, routing requests through approvals, generating documents from templates. These are all examples of Google Workspace workflow automation, connecting the tools your team already uses into processes that run consistently with the same expected outcome. In this video, we will see what Google Workflow Automation actually looks like in practice, what you can automate, how workflows are built, and how to get started. Zenphi, a no-code workflow automation platform built natively for Google Workspace, will be used for this demo. But the concepts apply broadly. If you're evaluating any automation tool for Google Workspace, this walkthrough will give you a clear picture of what the category can do. Let me pull up the platform. The first question most people have when they start thinking about automating Google Workspace workflows is, what can actually be automated? The answer is broader than most people expect. Automation in Google Workspace starts with a trigger, something that causes a workflow to start. In Zenphi, these triggers include Gmail event, a Google form submission, a new file being added to Drive, a calendar event. A trigger can also be a Google Workspace Admin event. Something happens in your workspace environment, an account or group is created, a suspicious activity happened. Triggers can also be scheduled. The workflow would run at a defined interval. And on demand. These triggers can be connected to buttons, say on your website. A workflow will start if somebody presses the button. On the action side, every operation you can perform in Google Workspace is available as a workflow step. Create a calendar event, delete a task, create an email, list emails, find emails, create a Google chat message, create a new chat channel, read files on Google Drive, create a user, delete a user, update users' rights. Every one of these is an action you can drop into a workflow, set it up manually without code, and connect to the step before and after it. Before we move forward with the building process, let's take a few moments to walk through the building blocks of any Google Workspace workflow automation. The first one is a trigger, something that starts the flow. Then we have an action, what the automation should do. Another building block is a loop, used for processing lists of items instead of one single item. For example, for performing the same action on all the files. In Google Workflow Automation, you'll be also using quite extensively an if condition. If this, do that. If it's not, do something else instead. And finally, assign a task action. It is the one that you'll be using for approvals and bringing a human dimension into the process. Assign a task block in Zenphi will allow you to set a list of possible outcomes. For example, approve or reject, expiry date, and a number of automated reminders sent via email to ensure that the person to whom a task has been assigned in the first place comes through with a decision. Those 5 elements, trigger, action, condition, loop, approval, are the building blocks of every Google Workspace workflow automation, from the simplest to the most complex. Once you understand them, you can build almost any process. Let's build a simple Google workflow from scratch so you can see how this actually comes together. The scenario: someone submits a Google form, let's say a new project intake form. When that happens, we want to automatically generate a project brief document from a template in Google Docs, save it to the right folder in Drive, and notify the project manager by email. I have put together here a Google form that will be used in this workflow. We have a project name, department, starting date, description. The form fields map to the placeholders in the Google Docs template that I have also created for this demo. We start with a Google Forms trigger. Add connection to my Google Drive and select the actual form that will be used. Notice that the form controls are loaded automatically. Let's leverage Zenphi's native connection to Google Admin and Lookup Manager by using a native first-class action Find Manager. We'll have to configure the action by adding a connection to directory and providing a form submitter's email, choosing it from a step above. Next step, document generation. We'll choose Generate a Document from Google Docs template and configure this action, just like the previous steps. Establish connection to Google Drive. Choose the template file. Set up the destination folder, where to save the final document, and the file name, which can be also assigned dynamically, based on the form submission fields. You can choose to generate a PDF if you'd like. If the file configured correctly, the placeholders should be already preloaded. We'd need to map them by choosing variables from the previous steps. Pretty much all our values come from a submitted form. Aside from a manager's name, this one is coming from a Find Manager step. Now, when all our placeholders in the document template are mapped to the Google Form answers, let's configure the last step. We need to send an email to the project manager and a copy to the form submitter to make sure they're aware of the process completion. We will configure this action, just like we did it with all previous steps, by filling in all the compulsory fields, establishing a connection with Gmail, and adding to the email a PDF attachment generated one step above. Let's save the workflow and test it. All looks good here. These are the steps of the workflow marked green, meaning they are completed. Let's check the actual outcome. The brief documents, doc and PDF, have been generated, named correctly, and placed in the right folder. All project details are also inserted correctly from the workflow steps. And this is my confirmation email with the attachment, just like expected. For more complex Google Workspace workflow automations, or if you want to get to a first draft faster, Zenphi has ZAIA, an AI workflow builder. It is a part of the platform. Instead of assembling steps manually, you just describe the process you want to automate in plain language. Let's take a workflow that would take some time to configure, drop this description into ZAIA, and in less than 30 seconds, you'll have a functional draft. What you need is to add your connections again and configure actions. The whole workflow setup takes minutes. Let me quickly cover the most common Google Workspace workflow automation use cases by team, because the right starting point depends on where your biggest manual workload is right now. User onboarding and offboarding, access provisioning with manager approval, two-step verification compliance auditing, inactive account cleanup, suspicious activity response, externally shared file audits. These workflows use native Google Workspace Admin API actions, user provisioning, OU assignment, group management, license management, that aren't available in general-purpose automation tools like Zapier. New hire onboarding with offer letter generation via Google Docs, DocuSign e-signature integration, parallel account setup and equipment ordering, offboarding checklists, leave request workflows, performance review routing. Invoice intake from Gmail, data extraction and validation, multi-stage approval workflows with escalation rules, purchase order generation from Google Docs templates, expense reimbursement routing, scheduled compliance reporting. Intelligent triage and routing of incoming requests, classifying emails by type, assigning them to the right person, tracking resolution, and automatic escalation. The common thread across all of these, they're processes that already exist in your organization. They're currently being done manually or with fragile scripts, and they can be automated in Google Workspace without writing a single line of code. If you want to start automating Google workflows, here's the most practical path. First, identify the process that costs your team the most time each week, and let us map it out for you on call in 30 minutes. Second, you can start your Zenphi 7 days free trial and let ZAIA create a workflow draft for you. Google Workspace workflow automation covers everything from simple single-step notifications to complex multi-stage processes with AI, approvals, and parallel execution. The building blocks are the same regardless of complexity: trigger, action, condition, loop, approval. And once you've built one workflow, the next one is faster. Thanks for watching.